Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. When this 26-year-old senator's son walked in thinking his father's political position made him untouchable, after assaulting a restaurant server, he made the catastrophic mistake of threatening a judge, while 5 witnesses sat in the gallery ready to testify against him. What happened next would not only destroy his future legal career, but end his father's 16-year Senate run, and prove that some acts of violence against working people cannot be excused by any family connection. This story shows us what happens when a senator's son mistakes his Ivy League education and family name for immunity from assault charges, when someone thinks throwing drinks at servers and physically shoving working mothers is acceptable behavior that political connections can erase, and when an entitled young man discovers that threatening judges while facing felony charges is the fastest way to guarantee maximum penalties. But before we dive into this explosive confrontation between privileged violence and judicial authority, less than 1% of you watching are actually subscribed. So please hit that subscribe button, because this story about a senator's son who assaulted a working mother and then threatened the judge deserves to reach everyone who needs to understand that political families don't get to assault people without consequences. It's a tense Friday afternoon in early June, and Providence Municipal Court is handling what should be a routine assault case. The early summer air outside carries warmth and possibility, but inside the courtroom the temperature is about to become charged with class warfare and political privilege meeting accountability. At exactly 3:15 p.m., the courtroom doors open with casual arrogance, and through them walks Brett Sullivan, the 26-year-old son of Rhode Island State Senator Thomas Sullivan. Brett moves with the entitled confidence of someone who has spent his entire life watching problems disappear because of whose son he is. He's dressed in an expensive suit that screams Ivy League Trust Fund. His designer watch catches the courtroom lights, and his entire demeanor radiates the superiority complex that develops when someone has never faced real consequences for behavior that would land ordinary people in jail. Brett is here because 3 weeks ago, he was charged with simple assault after an incident at an upscale restaurant in downtown Providence. According to the police report, Brett became verbally abusive toward his server, threw a drink in her face, and when she asked him to leave, he physically shoved her, causing her to fall backward into a table. But Brett isn't here alone, and what he doesn't realize is that his victim isn't either. Sitting in the gallery are 5 people who were dining at the restaurant that night. 5 witnesses who saw everything and who voluntarily came to court to make sure this entitled senator's son doesn't escape justice. Also in the gallery is the victim herself, Maria Santos, a 34-year-old single mother who works 2 jobs to support her 8-year-old daughter. Maria sits quietly, nervous but determined, wearing her restaurant uniform because she has to go directly to her second job after court. As Brett approaches the defendant's stand, his attorney, an expensive lawyer clearly hired by his family, whispers something to him. Brett nods dismissively, his expression suggesting he views this entire proceeding as a minor inconvenience that will be resolved quickly thanks to his father's connections. Brett Sullivan, the court clerk announces, reading from the docket. Brett steps forward with the bearing of someone accustomed to having charges dismissed the moment officials recognize whose son he is. Judge Caprio looks up from his paperwork with the experienced eye of someone who has dealt with entitled defendants for nearly 4 decades. He recognizes Brett's name immediately and understands exactly what kind of case this will be. Mr. Sullivan, Judge Caprio begins, his voice carrying measured authority. You're charged with simple assault. Specifically, on the evening of May 18th at approximately 9:30 p.m. at Riverside Bistro, you are alleged to have thrown a beverage at your server Maria Santos and subsequently pushed her, causing her to fall. How do you plead? Brett's attorney steps forward before Brett can speak. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty. This incident has been grossly mischaracterized. Mr. Sullivan was dining with friends, became frustrated with poor service, and there was a misunderstanding that resulted in accidental contact. No assault occurred. Judge Caprio sets down his pen, that gesture that signals he's about to cut through legal maneuvering. Counselor, the police report indicates there were multiple witnesses to this incident. It also indicates that Ms. Santos sustained bruises from her fall. That doesn't sound like accidental contact. Brett's attorney, clearly used to getting political family members out of trouble, continues smoothly. Your Honor, my client comes from a respected family. His father is Senator Thomas Sullivan. Brett himself is a Yale graduate who has been accepted to Columbia Law School starting this fall. This incident was completely out of character, and we believe a misunderstanding has been blown out of proportion. The mention of Columbia Law School and Senator Sullivan is clearly intended to signal that Brett is someone who deserves special consideration, but Judge Caprio's expression shows he's not impressed by credentials or connections when assault charges are involved. Mr. Sullivan, Judge Caprio addresses Brett directly, ignoring the attorney's attempt to control the narrative. I want to hear from you. What happened that night at the restaurant? Brett glances at his attorney, who nods permission for him to speak. Brett's voice carries the practiced tone of someone who has been coached on what to say. Your Honor, I was having dinner with friends. The service was extremely slow. Our server, Ms. Santos, was inattentive and made several mistakes with our order. I became frustrated, and yes, I may have raised my voice, but I certainly didn't assault anyone. Any physical contact was completely accidental. Judge Caprio looks at the police report again. Mr. Sullivan, according to this